We ready, panelists? All right. Good morning. Welcome to Digital Hollywood Content Summit. My name is Mark Vega. This is Crowdfunding State of the Union. We've done this panel almost 10 times now for the last 5 years. 5 years ago when we first did it, how many crowdfunding panels were there? Hold the microphone. All right, okay. All right.
Like Elvis.
Yeah. Okay. Uh-oh.
That was
My
just
movement will be
rehearsal.
restricted, but that'll be okay. I'll just have to contain myself. All right, we ready to go? You ready to go now?
Not possible. I know it's not possible.
Give this man some slack.
Oh man, I go to Home Depot a lot. I could have yanked that cord out. That's all. I don't want to. I don't have a union card though, so.
Nice. Let's see it.
Yeah, I went to karaoke last week with my kids and thought they'd love it with me, and they loved it, just not the with me part. All right, here we go. Ready? Let's do it. Good morning, everyone. This is Crowdfunding State of the Union Digital Hollywood Content Summit Fall 2014. My name is Mark Vega. I'm an entrepreneur, troublemaker. Always had a couple of companies going at once. I pay the bills by having a law firm focusing on some specialized securities litigation and other financial transactional matters, primarily in the entertainment business, always involving intellectual property. About 5 years ago or so, when we did our first crowdfunding panel here at the Content Summit, there was no such thing as a crowdfunding panel at any trade show. In those 5 years, every trade show in the entertainment sector now has an entire day devoted to crowdfunding or crowdsourcing or eventually crowd investing. In the first couple of years, when you have these panels, what you do is you focus on what you call success stories. So you bring people in and they tell you about their Kickstarter trials and tribulations or the Indiegogo trial and tribulations, but you get the people up there who asked for $50,000 and they got $2 million. Or according to this great married couple that decided that they really want to have solar freaking roadways, that's what they did on a crowdfunding site last fall. They asked for $1 million, they got 58 million. Nice. Those are not success stories, those are anomalies. If you want to hear more about them, go to any other crowdfunding panel at any other crowdfunding summit, because you have to go through that process before you can get to examining other elements of successful campaigns. I'm going to do a couple of things. I made you wait till 9:15 till we got started, till we have a little energy in the room. Stuart Copeland's going to be delivering a keynote address in this room at 10 o'clock. We're scheduled to get out of here at 9:45. I want you to have probably 10 to 15 minutes of questioning for these panelists. They represent 3 different projects. You're going to have questions for them because this is not the kind of panel where you go right down the row and say who you are, what you did, I asked for this much, I got this much, here's why it was so great idea, here's what stuff, here's what I'll do different next time. You can ask them that in the questions or bum rush them after the show. Bum rush them after the presentation or tweet them, get their email addresses, reach out and talk to them if their individual projects might speak to you or speak to your current issues and problems. I'm going to take you down a little different path today, but I promise you we'll get time for Q&A. This is an exciting moment to present the State of the Union of crowdfunding. Thomas Rigler came up with that name, the State of the Union, in the 3rd year of our doing these presentations, and it fits every time because this is a constant state of flux. We still can't freely take money from unaccredited investors and call them owners of our film or our project or our company. You can't do it yet on crowdfunding source sites, but we're starting to be able to. The Jobs Act, which was supposed to create incentives for startups, was only 9 pages long. Within a year and a half, the SEC said, this is easy. You interpret these 9 pages by reading these 530 pages. Nobody's happy with that. Marlon Schulman, who's on the panel, yesterday was at another trade show where he talked to one of the authors of the bill, the Jobs Act itself, and their Jobs Act 2 is on the way, thank God, in hopes to cut through the BS that's out there right now. This panel is going to be broken down into three different topics, and I'm going to start into the flow of those 3 things as we introduce the panelists, and I'm going to let their stories come out as they discuss these issues. First up, the very first element of any sale is the buy-in. And ultimately, we're serving up goods for an audience who's willing to pay. Whether we get the money up front, whether we get the money later, we're really serving up something that an audience wants to see. But you have to get internal buy-in before that happens. You got to wear many, many hats. There's one guy up here, I think there's Thomas, actually he's texting that guy back there. See, look, he's texting.
Branding.
No, you hear my phone? Yeah, he's like, would you get on with it, Mark? You just hear the little beep? That's what This guy has been in my kitchen more than anybody in the room, not because we're related or neighbors or friends, though I'm glad to finally meet him, but because he's a performer, an actor that's been on television that's not just geared for adults. It's geared for teenagers. It's geared for kids. My 11-year-old girls know him by name. Thomas Choi's been a performer for many, many years. He set a goal of $12,000 because he did a dramatic short. He did a dramatic short, or he wanted to do a dramatic short about a real story about a wrongly accused, maybe, Korean killer. Guy denied it. He claims his innocence. Well, for a guy who works on Disney shows to be able to pull that off, you're going to have to wear a lot of hats, but you're also not going to be able to, rely on your fan base necessarily, because, my 11-year-olds are not going to be giving him any money, that's for sure. You're going to have to reach in and find an audience that will listen to you. And it's good that he had a platform initially because he's been on television for so long. But he even cuts a great image too. Ultimately, Thomas Choi told me this morning he agreed. He said to his people, "Trust me, I'm a superhero. I can pull it off." Thomas, that's quite a setup, and I don't know how you're going to move from there. But you talked a lot this morning about making a choice to do a short-form dramatic content piece when your core fan base is not the people you need to now convince that you can do it. So talk to us about wearing a lot of hats and taking on that superhero role to get people interested in what you're trying to do.
Well, first of all, the project is called Lone Hunter. We did it through Indiegogo.com. And yes, of course. Thank you. Sorry, I'm not used to performing. So. No, but first of all, the project's called Lone Hunter. We did it on Indiegogo. We did raise successfully $12,000, which, by the way, is about the average that is the success rate. Getting just long story short, the project has to be something that's close to your heart. That's the only way that it really drove me to be able to wear the many hats that Marka is talking about. Because there's many times where you're like, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? I mean, we're asking for people's money, and the project should be close to your heart. And that's what it was for me. It's based on a true story. So me and my director, producing partner, I wrote and acted in it and produced it. That's what drives you. So.
Your IMDb page is a couple pages long, which has been performing, producing, writing, directing a lot of things for many, many years. And so you can tell that you're a guy that wears many hats. And even though you're not Stuart Copeland, who's going to do a campaign for something and has worldwide legions of fans, you've got a big enough base of support that people are going to do editorial on you.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to cover it a little bit. They're going to want to find out what you're doing.
Yeah.
Right? The gentleman on the end of the dais and this guy in the middle are another representation of the dawn of the owner-operators. Brian is the chief creative officer of something called the Horror Equity Fund. Marlon Schulman is the CEO. They've been in Hollywood for a long time. Marlon's put together all kinds of deals from many different sides of the table, and he's been looking at crowdfunding and crowdsourcing since the very first panel I did here many years ago. And he finally came up with a formula that he thought could work to create a fund that's not Kickstarter or Indiegogo, it's its own platform, a genre-specific platform, not just for movies, for all sorts of entertainment and intellectual property that has as a through line wanted to serve horror-hungry audiences. Forgive if that setup left out anything, Marlon, but what I want to hear from you is, what's your impression about this superhero analogy? Do you have to put on a lot of hats for campaigns to be successful? And why? Why?
Okay, the state of the, first of all, good morning. The state of crowdfunding, sourcing, investing is royally screwed up, actually. Despite all stories of Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and I'm really happy that we can do $12,000 films on Indiegogo, and occasionally an Adam Carolla can raise $1 million because he has a radio show. That's not the average story for films. I'm not talking about little projects of, you know, I have an app that floats my coffee cup across the table, or I have a new speaker or something like that. For films, it's very, very difficult, despite storied successes of Warner Brothers raising $5 million for Veronica Mars. Why people would want to give $5 million to a multi-billion-dollar corporation so they can see their favorite former TV show, I don't know, except that they are fans. And that put me in mind of the idea that there are discrete, decentralized fan bases of genre type films throughout the industry. And why should we have to have a director, actor, producer put on the hat of also a marketing campaign manager? One of the big differences in Horror Equity Fund, what we're doing is, besides helping to develop projects by reverse engineering them, getting distribution for the script before it's shot, even before the money is raised, by going to film distributors in reverse order, is that we conduct the marketing campaigns because we have the database of horror fans. We know the accredited investors. Eventually, we will know the non-accredited investors. We're building the Federation of Horror, which is a community aggregator. So we'll know who to go to, and we basically will have a stocked game preserve. There shouldn't be a situation where someone has to be a superhero. That's not a real business. That's a project that's near and dear to your heart, that you have $12,000 and you want to shoot it, and it's laudable and it's a good thing to do, but that's not a sustainable business.
I love that you're saying that, because you're just saying that when you scale, you can't be one person and do it all. I agree with that. But right now, Horror Equity Fund, I don't have the CEO and the chief creative officer and the chief financial officer and the chief marketing officer in one man.
No.
So what you're saying is that when individually wear many hats, okay, so this guy's got a chief creative hat, right? For
Yep.
the Horror Equity Fund. So as you move out, you haven't launched anything yet. You haven't launched the platform yet for various reasons, but you're working on it. But the idea is something we've all been chasing. We really want to find a home for our capital contributions. Kickstarter's become it's too anonymous, right? I've known Mark for many, many years. And he is a director and a writer and a producer and a technologist. He's worn many, many hats for a long time. And even as he stepped into it, Leah, sitting to his left, is someone who's been through a number of Indiegogo campaigns, 7 of those and more on Kickstarter. But it was only through combining 2 of them together that decided they could take on a $30,000 goal this summer and make it work, right? Before I let you talk about that, though, Brian, Chief Creative Officer of an entity that hasn't started yet.
Yeah.
Well, Mark, we have started. I mean, we've actually funded a film. We just didn't have to go to the crowd. Because we reverse engineer films, we were able to do a development, go to our private equity sources, and get the funding.
Okay. So it's not really like in a proof of concept scenario. You had to get a couple under your belt because you're going out for real dollars.
Exactly.
Dollars,
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So my question still is about superheroes.
Yeah.
In a sense, I want to know, because I've heard you do a radio interview.
Yeah.
On a couple blog pieces, and the team that you guys got at Horror Equity Fund, you've got great pedigrees, and you're all wearing hats that we pretend are distinct.
Right.
But I sense that you're doing what you're not just asked for your creative expertise, right?
Yeah, well, there are a couple of things. Part of what we do at Horror Equity Fund is we take the heavy lifting. That doesn't mean that we replace it 100%. I don't think there's any part of the industry where, a filmmaker or a star or a director or producer simply does that job and then walks away and assumes that everything's going to be hunky-dory. Everybody, it's such a collaborative art. Everybody gets involved, and everybody gets involved to hopefully make a project more successful. But what the difference is when someone comes to us and we work on their project, then they're not expected to go out and find that money. They're not expected to call their uncle, their cousin, their best friend and say, hey, could you please just give me $10 and let me, put that into my film so I can go off and make my movie. That doesn't mean that we're not going to tap those people and that we're not going to contact them, or we may say to the filmmaker, get to your people, blog, tweet, do whatever you can.
Right.
But we do the heavy lifting, and it is a collaborative art. Everybody wears a lot of hats, regardless. I've been, like many people on the panel, I started as an actor, became a producer, was a writer, continue to be a writer, director, producer, all of those things. And I'm one of I kind of bring the filmmaker's perspective to the Horror Equity Fund. And I look out for those people who are coming to our platform to say, I'm a filmmaker. I want to make a movie. What do I do? Or I have a horror related project. I want to do a haunted house in cities across the country, and I need to fund it. How do I do that? And what is my level of quality, and what do I need to do? And so we want to be collaborative with our clients, with the people that come to us, and we want to take care of the burden of going out and having to pound the pavement. Because the people that I know that have attempted to do the crowdfunding as it exists now, and we're not talking, those guys were talking about reward-based or donation-based. We're not talking about equity, which is a totally different thing. And that's where we live.
That's right.
We're in the equity crowdfunding, which is an SEC compliant platform.
Right.
But in the crowdfunding world, there is so much competition, and it is so scattered, which is the other thing. We're very laser focused on horror. So that actually helps, because if you want horror, if you don't want it, don't come.
Right.
If you want horror, this is it.
Perfect. So the great thing about the Horror Equity Fund right now, if you're a producer, writer, director, you've got horror projects in the back, in the closet, in the drawer, video games, graphic novels, anything in the horror space. Write these names down. Write these names down, and check out the websites. Do all the searching you can, because this is just the bellwether. Horror is just the first, right? These guys are getting a lock on the template. And I appreciate the enthusiasm and say, come to us, we'll solve all the problems. Now we get to the nightmare code. And here's why Mark Netter and Leah
Savoli. I know no one in this room except for this guy. I'm like, what did I get myself into?
What am I getting
But
myself
Mark, I think Mark Vega needs his own show. This is amazing moderating.
So as you can tell, Leah is a very smart consultant. she really dials right in, right out of the moment. No, so the nightmare code. Mark, as a technologist, worn many hats, decided that when Thomas said, "I need 12 grand," he got it. Mark decided he's shooting this film on security cameras and webcams and Google glasses. It's amazing, and it's going to spawn a lot of imitators, and I hope Mark gets to make the second and third version of this. It's tough when people die, but you can figure that out. Maybe Marlon can fund the next film. Mark, the part that Mark's going to handle is superhero is done. Once you get people to listen to you, you got 30 days or 60 days, whatever you set. Mark set 30 days to make it happen. Mark, you had to take every single risk that you could take in order to accomplish this. Leah is a consultant. She worked on the film, is a part of the film team, but they connected because Mark wanted to make sure when he did this campaign, he was successful. And he was. It's not an anomaly. This is real world success. 30 grand he asked for, 30 grand he got in 30 days. Yeah. But forget the superhero part. Once you get people's attention, you got 30 days. You got to take every risk possible. Yes or no? Are you a stunt man? What are you?
So, the first thing about our film was that we had already been shot. We had already been funded through post. I had done a couple rounds of fundraising, but we were looking for finishing funds. We needed the 30 grand in order to be able to really bring it home and get it to distribution, which we're in the process of trying to find right now. And I'm pleased to announce that 2 weeks ago, we actually were in our first film festival, and we won Best Thriller Feature Film and the Shriek Fest, 14th Annual Shriek Fest Festival here in Hollywood, which was amazing. First time I saw it on the big screen with a room full of, I think it was 170 people. And then winning the award was actually kind of left me speechless. But the thing is that, I didn't feel comfortable doing this on my own. And I started going to panels like this and trying to learn how things were done. And I saw Leah give it was a Pay It Forward event.
That's right. Yeah, I was thinking, how did we connect originally?
And she was so swamped afterwards with people talking to her that I actually didn't get to talk to her at the event. And I was lucky. I had to track her down online, and and she had tremendous experience, and she basically told us what to do when, starting before. And then when we're actually in it, you want to talk about taking risks. As I was kind of telling Mark before, we were sort of talking just before coming up here, I was going out to people that I think was even mortifying my wife. And, I was basically sending out emails, making lists, and sending out emails to people that I had in my Rolodex. Some people I hadn't talked to in years, people I'd gone to NYU Film School with, family members, friends, people from my high school, people from my college. I have a day job, so I had to be a little careful about sort of where I was playing with that, but there were some people that I could go to there. And what was astonishing was the response. And we had people that were insanely generous. It's a very difficult ride. You usually have a very big bump at the beginning. You make it so you have a bump at the end. The middle can be daunting, and in the middle, you're also trying to get people to write about you. So, one of the things about bringing Leah on, and she can talk more about it, is that she knows people that could do our graphics, that could do our editing of our videos, that could help us in various. I brought on someone from a previous job that I knew who was an expert in reaching out to bloggers and in after hours. And we had a little bit of money to spend because we had some, money we had raised, previously, and that was a big risk. How much money can I commit to doing this campaign? Will it be cost effective? Am I throwing away money because maybe we don't make it? What's that all about? And the one thing that I would just want to sort of emphasize is that whatever you need to do to hit your goal, you got to do. And, on Kickstarter, it's do or die. And I think if you have a film that if you don't raise that amount, you can't shoot. If you raise $5,000 less, you won't be able to deliver on your Kickstarter campaign. You should go to Kickstarter. With Indiegogo, you get to keep it. But if you hit your goal, they give you a huge percentage back of what they take. And the biggest thing about hitting your goal is that it makes everybody feel great.
Yeah.
The
difference between you and my boyhead fantasy superstar Evel Knievel is that people watched Evel Knievel because half of them wanted to see him crash. People don't tune into Indiegogo, and your aunt's not going to give you $20 because she wants to see you fail. So that's a big difference. But when you're in the middle, when you're in mid-flight, and there's 13 buses, and the whole world is watching, it doesn't really matter that your aunt's going to still love you even if you crash and break your legs, right?
I mean, literally, like, I'm on Facebook at night reaching out to people who, I worked with 6 years ago, who are now in England, whatever it was, and you're starting to say, hey, check this out and go look at our page, and, it'd be great to have you aboard. So it's all that kind of stuff.
Right. And you're trying to personalize it as much as possible. Okay. Now, Leah, though I know you're a consultant that gets people in the mix, and I just realized maybe we really should there could be a great panel about utter disasters. I'm sure that's been done already, but
I don't have any disasters.
No. I was, because of your keen insight previously, I was thinking maybe you could help me find some. Not that they were caused by you at all. All right, so now we're through that. We're through the superhero phase, and we're through the risk taker phase. And now we get to the time, I kind of like let's call this payday. In anticipation of cashing that check, of getting that check in your hand, of making sure the money's hit the account, the wire has cleared. You got nothing but blue skies and excitement.
Mark,
it might have drained you a little
Mark,
bit.
Can I speak to kind of what everybody has said before we move on?
I got a
Is that
break.
okay?
I got a session just for you. It's coming up right now. You ready for this? No, you gotta stand down just for a second. And here's why. Because Leah, you're on the hot seat. No, it's not the cool seat. It's called the hot seat. So here's why. So after you get the money, then you got to deliver. So I say that it's almost a full cycle. You got to go back and become something else. You got to be a beast when you succeed, because now you got to deliver. So talk to us as a consultant who says, how do you prepare your client for success as they defined it? And what do you urge them to do? What steps have to be immediately taken so they can grab the success when they've got it?
So are you talking specifically about fulfillment, or just kind of in general?
You've got seven successful Indiegogo campaigns and more Kickstarter campaigns than that, right? So what happens when they achieve the goal? Then what do you advise? What's the best?
I typically step down at that point, unless I'm a producer on the project, and and many of these I am a producer. I don't offer that service of fulfillment. That is a huge responsibility, and there are companies out there that offer that, and I would advise you put that in your budget. As far as like everybody with all the hats, I'm kind of a combination of all of these people on this table. So I'm an actor, I'm an indie film producer, I'm a voice actor, I'm a writer, I'm all of those things. And I'm used to wearing all those hats, but about a year ago, a lot of the projects I was involved in just started crowdfunding. And so over the past year, I've worked on 15 successful Kickstarter and Indiegogo and fan-backed campaigns, and I've been instrumental in raising $1 million. So where you guys say these are flukes, I say no, they're not. There's a formula, and there's a hard work, and there's team commitment. He's not kidding. I was riding his butt the whole time. Who are you emailing? Have you emailed them? Who can we get? We need to hire this person. We need to hire that person. You do have to account for a budget, depending on your goal. If your goal is $5,000, obviously you're not going to spend $5,000 to put your team together. But if your goal is $100,000 or more, you better have a budget so that you can hire a campaign manager, so that you can hire a graphics person, so that you can have a professional video editor. However, on the other hand, I love everything about what you guys are doing, and I can't believe I haven't met you till now. I have at least 3 horror projects I want to send to you guys.
The thing about the difference between $1 million
Oh.
and $10 million and $50 million.
Is the amount of people, the amount of the project, the team.
No, but
It's
we have
the
that.
team.
What
The
I-
difference,
well,
but the
the
difference,
investors, yeah.
the difference is more than that. The difference is infrastructure, not just personnel. It's a knowledge base, right?
Oh, of course.
And it's $1 million over 10 campaigns. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. When Mark needed 30 grand, he needed 30 grand. If the law was opened up, so the Mark could have got equity funding for the film,
Well,
or
he's still,
equity
well,
participation
he's
for the
now
film.
he's into the distribution deal. But there are many films that, as they're funding, there's been some films. Mark was in post-production. There's been some films that are in pre-production or just planning phases, and now they've gone on to get even more in investor and equity funding.
Right.
One of my Indiegogos, they raised 88 on the site, and before they went into production, they just finished shooting, they got another 80,000 in equity and investors, and they used their campaign as a platform to attract investors, to attract equity funding, because your campaign now turns into your calling card.
That's right.
So that's something you have to be prepared
Well,
for.
the work required
Yeah.
is not traditional creative writer, producer, director work. So
No,
the,
it's
the
not.
reason that I labeled it
Yeah.
superhero initially, is you've got to wear enough hats to know how to get your project financed and what options are available
Yeah.
to you. What's not available yet is genre-specific funds that will help to
It's
finance
happening though.
any.
I love this. I love this idea because there are others popping up
Thank
out
you.
there.
Yeah, that's right. It's a good idea.
No,
After
no,
you-
the-
After you succeed, hang on, but because
Sure.
it's coming back to you.
no, I'm not gonna get.
But I wanted to, but
There's a
now I
train
gotta let,
coming through.
I gotta let Mark though to speak to it because I thought it was a softball, but maybe not. What happens after you succeed?
Sure.
Now you took those risks. Your aunt's happy. Everybody's happy. You got the money. You've got to deliver.
Okay, so Mark, I'm actually going to present you with one of our rewards. This is for you personally, since you seem to be the t-shirt guy today. So here's your Nightmare Code TV t-shirt. It says Nightmare Code, and the other side is our tagline, which we actually came up with during the campaign. Campaigns are great for figuring out your marketing. It finds the bug in you.
I love it. I love there's a flash drive too. When you talk about a movie that has, when you talk about a movie that has corrupt code that's taken over the world,
Thank you.
these are great little pieces of sweat. But what I really do contend is that while you start as a superhero, you have to end as one too.
So we give
Because
you
unless
numbers,
you
because we'll
really
talk.
take the bull by the horns and make sure you deliver for the audience that's giving you those dollars, you're not going to get any kind of respect in the future.
Yeah.
You're not a service center.
Let me
So
talk.
Marlon, wrap it.
Just quickly, there's 2 types of delivery, right? So one type of delivery is that you have to deliver on the donations, and we're still in the process of that. But a lot of the stuff has already been done. About 3 weeks ago, massive T-shirt, poster. And I have some posters for people if they want them. Some signed posters, some signed scripts. All this stuff went out, and I still have a few things left to do, like an hour conversation with the director. It's a very important one. And some screening things and some other things that we have, and the digital download of the movie, which we can't do till we have a distribution deal and have that cleared up. So those are things you have to deliver on. The other thing is you got to deliver, hopefully, something that people actually feel they were happy that they participated in. As someone once said to me before, or that I saw at a seminar before going into crowdfunding, nobody wakes up in the morning wanting to give money to something, but they do wake up in the morning wanting to participate in something cool, or something meaningful, or something that will save lives, or something that will help make a great piece of art, or something that will be something in a genre that they love. So
Now, nobody wakes up and gives you a check in hopes that the film fails. Nobody does that anymore.
yeah, and you don't want to disappoint them, you know?
I took liberties with some of the new people on my panel that we haven't spoken with before, so we got a little bit of the question time, but that's it for me. Give us questions now. Marlon and Craig didn't get to go into, Marlon and Brian didn't get to go into the function of their fund just yet, but we've got a little bit of time. Yes, ma'am. What do you do?
I bridge Hollywood to Silicon Valley and have for 30 years.
By writing checks or by making connections?
Making connections.
Very good.
So
Thank you
folks
for the
are
distinction.
connected.
Let's
Yeah,
hear it.
Nice.
Let's hear it.
Clarify.
Nice.
Yeah.
Guys, one of my longtime friends and clients, well, in addition to Stuart, is another film composer named Alan Howard, whose work I'm sure you guys are familiar with.
Yeah.
And Alan's biggest challenge was he's also a multifaceted Renaissance guy, like many of us are. Technology. You know, he built this whole surround sound system with speakers and everything. He couldn't get anybody to get behind it because it wasn't him as a composer. And this is the kind of thing we write checks in Silicon Valley on Sandhill Road for. So in your equity fund, because of his pedigree in that world, would you be limited to, in that context, just your basic Hollywood content stuff, or would you look to someone like him and say, well, let's take a look at what you got on some other areas?
So who's on the team? I didn't say that. So tell who's on the team, the pedigree that you already got.
We have, well, the first thing is, yes, we'll look at anything. Brian and I own the company. We can look at anything we want to, despite the name of the company. There are ways of doing that, by the way, on an equity basis and on a unaccredited, non-accredited investor basis of raising money. I might have a different solution for you, so we can talk. On the team, Brian has a long pedigree of producing, directing. He left out that he's been teaching writing for Boston University for 20 years and just came out with a book. You can buy it on Amazon. It's terrific.
Thank you for that plug.
We have Peter Flood, who's been a long time, what's the name? I forgot the name of it.
He's a union analyst.
No,
Oh,
the name
your
of
name
your
of your
book.
book?
My book.
Priorities.
We're back on that. It's a process to product.
It's a terrific book. It really is. Peter Flood is a union analyst, a very rare breed of people who dissect scripts and turn them into better scripts. We have John Cry, who is a producer, director, and we have a lot of people who I am not allowed to talk about waiting for us to more publicly launch in order to contribute their names. Major figures in the world of horror, producing, directing, and writing.
Now, are those brand names going to be sourcing product and content from what comes to you, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
your name brand client collaborates, advises, connects with a fund that's genre specific and gets to feed from the kind of the Federation of Horror, the supermarket idea that all this content is going to come in and it's going to have biggest, best eyes on it.
We actually do own supermarketofhorror.com as well, besides about 60 other ones.
Did he know that?
Yeah, he knew it. Yeah,
Do you have a question?
No.
I came here for crowdfunding. That's why I came here to hear.
Yeah.
And it seems to me I only heard from you, Leah, and I appreciated that.
Oh, you're
What I liked, and I really do, because I learned a lot from what you said. The last couple of sentences, and I appreciate what you said, Mark, because it helped. But what I'd like to know is, instead of, well, I did that. What I'd like to know is just what did you do to start? Projects, each one has their own project. I just wanted to know, when you go on, when you decided, and I learned yesterday about Indiegogo versus Kickstarter,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll get anything at Indiegogo, but Kickstarter was 3 months, and if you don't meet your goal
Mhm.
of $50,000, you get 49,
Mhm.
you get nothing.
Mhm.
You didn't say that,
So that's why you set your goal
right? So
somewhere
I-
that you know you can reach, and then you do what's called stretch goals.
Right, I know that.
you
I
know,
know that.
But like Mark said, I think it's a great, I really enjoy Kickstarter because of the urgency. So say, okay, I'm sorry, what's the question?
Yeah, but we're
Okay,
really on a
okay.
deadline, so that wasn't my
Okay, what's the question? I'm sorry.
It's just giving you like the Kickstarter and the Indiegogo. So what I'd like the panel to discuss is what what is out there for the choices that people have and the difference between the choices. That's all
I respectfully beg you, ask you to be as nice as I can. I'll connect you with them directly. Each of their stories, in painstaking detail and from their heart, exists on those websites already. So it's, in some ways, I think it's a little bit of a disservice. I urge you, look them up. I want you to go to Indiegogo. I want you to go to Kickstarter, see the stories told from their own perspective, because each one is deserving of an hour and a half. It really is. And they are selected because they are the success stories, not the anomalies. These are the hard-working success stories in the CrossFit. So I apologize that my own presentation and how I kind of set this up doesn't afford us the opportunity to really drill down. This guy's story is amazing. He selected a
But it's
dramatic
not the
piece of
story that I'm looking at. Each one has their own story. Everybody here has a story.
What would be the, what, is there, did you want to know the differences between
I want
Yeah,
to
but-
And other
Indiegogo?
platforms.
I'm sure that you just didn't decide on one thing.
Sure.
What made you decide on the
That's what I'm
platform?
asking about.
Okay, well, let me just tell my story then.
Talk to her
Out there,
afterwards if you want
and
to.
then why did you choose what
Yeah,
you chose?
absolutely. Sure. It's very simple. We analyzed like what our goal was. We looked at Kickstarter. Indiegogo and Kickstarter are the two main ones. There are some other ones that are coming out. I think Seed and Spark has
Flash
something.
funders,
There's
fan
many of
backer,
them.
there's a lot of
Fan
them.
You know, I chose personally to go through a flexible route, flexible funding it's called. That's the difference between Kickstarter. Kickstarter only has fixed funding, which means you have to meet your goal. Otherwise, they do not give you the money and they don't process your credit cards. With Indiegogo, you have both ways. You have fixed funding. I don't know what Nightmare Code did, but we did flexible. On hindsight, I think it'd be better to go fixed funding. Because what happens is, and this is a general thing, if you look it up on Google, they'll just say like, you know, fixed funding shows that there's an urgency to it and people will, you know, and it's statistically proven that they'll drive more money toward that earlier. So that's,
If I may, if you go to Google, look up crowdfunding, they will have charts
I know that.
and it will give you exactly what you're.
I'm asking the panel's opinion of what they did.
Yeah.
I understand I can.
Yeah, but it's very, okay,
I'm
good.
just asking. That's why I'm
No
saying-
problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, sir.
I want to ask your idea on the ethics of this. Last crowdfunding campaign I ran, in the final day or two before the deadline, I had a friend pledge $1,000 in the name of our Gosling, and then went on to social media, Twitter is what.
I love it.
All of a sudden, people were all over the place, and
Holy cow.
there was, we could get a few more contributions in. And then Whitney Houston died, and nothing else was talked about for the rest of the night.
Well, because your scheduled W. Houston contribution just didn't.
That's right.
Yeah.
Listen, it's not only immoral, but it's illegal. It's, I mean,
That's right.
That's my opinion.
But
You've got too many good things going
Ryan
on.
Gosling, it was R, there are.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that, to be honest
Oh,
with
I
you.
do.
You do?
Oh, I do. We're both attorneys.
Really?
I would
Is
take
it that bad?
case.
I would use
Wow.
it.
Nah, I would- I wouldn't.
The expert speaks.
When you said you started to ask your friends whom you had not seen high school, elementary, or whatever, do you just like out of the blue just say, hi, remember me from wherever, and start asking for money, or is that a strategy that you do? Like, you know, let's say 6 months before, hello, and then, you know, redevelop, warm up the relationship, or you just go cold and ask.
Hard question, which is more skanky? To 6 months in advance say, hey, I'm really interested in your life, and then 6 months later, hey, by the way, I'm raising a ton of dough. No, you know, I think that you're just honest. Like, I think that, you know, I'm not going to people that I don't have any connection to at all, but, you know, people do, I mean, I'm of an age where there's a lot of people I haven't seen in 20 years, 30 years, you know, but, you know, like I'm from upstate New York, from a town of Del Mar, New York, and, you know, we all like each other and support each other and, you know, want to see each other do well. And so for a lot of people, it's like kind of an attaboy, especially doing it, like I said, kind of at my age. I think people get a little inspired, you know, and I think that you just have to, I believe really strongly in authenticity. And I think, yeah, and I, you know, and it's a big word in our culture right now because, you know, we're past the age of just mass media lying to you. Now the fans have direct participation in shows and all that kind of stuff. So I think if you're real and you're honest about what your goals are, if you're doing something sincere, you're not trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes, you know, you say, hey, you know, these are all risky things and, you know, who knows, but I've got specific rewards, which I know through our budget we can afford. I've got a film which is almost finished in our case, which I know that we will deliver, and I had a high opinion of it. So, you know, I think that you just go authentic. You go to people that you had some sort of rapport with. Maybe it was somebody you used to hang out with, like over coffee at work a few times, but you generally liked each other. You just, you know, not everybody has time in their lives for deep relationships with everybody they know and to keep them going for years. I mean, I have friends who I may not see for 5 years. We get together and it's like a day has passed, you know, the way that we talk. So I think to just be real.
I think now that you've heard Mark speak and Leah, go to the Nightmare Code campaign pages on Indiegogo. You've heard how Mark speaks and how Leah speaks and interacts. When you read the campaign, go from the top, and you'll see the progress as he's speaking to people. You'll see how what words Mark uses to really relate to people.
Right.
The authenticity you hear today is on that site.
Yeah, read the updates and look at the video. Just as a rule of thumb, I would add to that a minimum of 100 personal emails should be drafted and ready to send on the day your campaign launches. And by personal, I mean, hey, Joe, great vacation pictures you just put up on Facebook. I enjoyed looking at them. Can I tell you about my project? Hey, Sally, congrats on the new baby. Whatever it is, just so that they know you actually took the time to look at what's going on in their life before you ask for money.
And that's exactly how you guys did it. It was brilliant. Thank you all for being here this morning. Thank you, audience, for hanging out before we started. Mark, Leah, Marlon, Brian on the end, are all available for your conversations. I think I have
Not Tommy.
separate
And Tom.
Tom first.
Okay.
I was going to say, not Tom. He's
No,
I won't talk to
said it.
anybody.
I need autographs from Tom first.
He's trying to monopolize time.
Thank you for your patience. These guys have to leave through that door, so feel free to tackle them on the way.
Thank you for coming early and seeing us.
Guys, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was very helpful.